What's good, everybody out there on YouTube? This is your man Jet Set Shattuck dropping some hot frogger on this mic. Today we're going to be talking about the Switch 2 Pro controller. This is a video I've wanted to make for a minute now, but busy with life. So I just want to jump into it. The title might be a little hyperbolic, but I didn't think it would be this good. Out of the big three controllers, one of the Japanese giants has finally kind of overtaken Microsoft this generation, I believe. I received this as a Christmas gift, so I didn't buy it. So take that, how it may be. So I didn't spend my own money, but I need to talk about where the original succeeded, where it failed, and kind of how we got here. So where did the original Switch Pro controller succeed? I think it succeeded in a few places. First of all, the size was great, especially if you're someone like me with very large hands. The ergonomics were really close to the Xbox controller, which I feel are, kind of king. And then the offset analog sticks, are there like God intended. If you don't like offsets analog sticks, what's wrong with you? The buttons also felt decent, and despite lacking analog triggers, they felt nice to use. Same with the bumpers. The stick height was also decent. But where did the original fail? First of all, the D-pad on the early units weren't amazing. They had no middle post or anything like that, and it kind of felt comparable to Sony's D-pad, which on a little tangent, I think Sony has kind of convinced gamers that shitty D-pads are okay. Or, I don't want to say shitty, but like subpar D-pads are okay. And I think that was reinforced by the fact that the 360 had a very, very bad D-pad. So in comparison to that, when you take the PS3 in account, it was a godsend. But when you, take that into account with what was functionally a controller that could get drift. Now I never got drift on my Pro controller, and I technically have two because my girlfriend doesn't use hers and I was using them in two different rooms. They were proven to drift, but more importantly the plastic kind of grinded away over time so that the sticks weren't super smooth. So while I love the Pro controller, if you ever had one like this is mine from 2017, after a while it gets kind of gritty, which if you don't have one you won't understand. But if you do have one, especially one you've had for a long time, if you move it in a circle, there's friction there. Also, the plastics just didn't feel amazing. They felt cheaper than the asking price, which if I remember correctly was like $70. So you were paying what was basically the price of a DualShock 4 at the time, or an Xbox. Actually, I think Xbox One controllers were cheaper, but of a DualSense, actually even the DualSense got cheaper. But basically you're paying a lot of money for a controller that should have been a little bit better. It was a great controller, don't get me wrong, but some of the issues it faced, like I said, no analog triggers, and most importantly, those analog sticks I didn't think were acceptable. So did the new Pro controller really improve anything? It does have quite a few things going for it. First of all, the ergonomics are basically on par with Xbox. They're not exactly the same, which I think are fine. I just think the ergonomics are up to the same degree. It is a little bit smaller than the previous Pro controller, but it's kind of been refined in where they, your hands place, where you place your hands and where you grip things. It's once you hold it, when you look at it, you may not notice it, but when you hold it, you notice. On top of that, these sticks are different heights. So, this is something that you don't think you want until you have it. And once you have it, you don't want to go back. This isn't something like the GameCube where you get a little nub on one control stick, and on the other, you have a full size one. No, they're both full size control sticks. It's just that this right one is a little bit lower than the left one. And I didn't know this was something I wanted until I had it. On top of that, the plastics are matte and they're not susceptible to grease buildup, which I was worried about as soon as I took it out, because something like this is matte, but there's no grease buildup. I've come home, eaten some Burger King, some Checkers, some McDonald's, and I've put my greasy, grubby hands on it, and it has yet to have any grease on it. It's like I don't want to say it like this, but it feels like somehow they've made it resistant to that, which I think is great. On top of that, the additional back buttons provide additional functionality and are applicable per game, which is something I can't speak on the Xbox Series Pro controller, but I have a DualSense Edge. And while I love that I could have different profiles, it's not per game, at least with the back paddles. I wish I could just load up a game and it immediately goes to that profile. That's not the case with a controller like that, which is way more expensive. It's $200, which with this one, those back paddles soon as I go in the game, I can customize them from the little, you know, pull up menu, and that's that. On top of that, the buttons are slightly smaller than the OG, and they're slightly, but when you compound that with, you know, back buttons that are actually pretty comfortable to use, to be honest, I was worried because they're in here and I'm used to those paddle style back paddles, and when they're right there, they need to be kind of bigger. Like I have this big wand controller, or big wand, whatever the fuck it's called, right here, and they're slightly raised. They feel nice. They're actually clicky. I think they were well implemented on the Switch 2 Pro controller. I was actually surprised because they're pretty much almost completely flush with the controller itself. There's something you wouldn't notice if you didn't know were there. On top of that, the buttons in general are slightly smaller than the OG, but they have a slightly more tactile bump. I think this is good because I feel like it makes your presses more intentional. If you use the original, especially if you have large hands, it's easier to slide your hand over another button and not know it, I guess, especially if you're playing a game where there's like a lot of mashing, just, you know, keeping it real. And the D-pad, while still not, you know, all the way to my liking, because I like clicky D-pads, I really like the modern Xbox controllers, the series controllers, and the not the very original Xbox One controllers, but they did a revision where the D-pad got like a massive upgrade, I feel, at least. And I once you use the clicky D-pads, you can't really go back. They're very hard to go back from. But you know, I like the D-pad in the Switch 2 Pro controller. It's not perfect. I wish it had a little bit more of a click, or at least a more tactile bump. It is a little bit more tactile than the Switch ones. On top of that, it's more deliberate. Like I can play Street Fighter and feel like, you know, there's no missed inputs. That's really like kind of the bar for D-pads for me. Like, you know, I can play a fighting game, I can play a platformer without feeling like I've put in a missed input. And then on top of that, which I think this is this controller's like biggest feature, is the analog sticks. Like the analog sticks are the smoothest I have ever used in any controller ever. I don't know what Nintendo did to get them this good. It is actually black magic. I don't know what demons are in Nintendo's headquarters, but they are so smooth that I thought something was wrong. They are great. They're phenomenal. I know a lot of people are going to be upset that they're not TMR or Hall Effect. I'm gonna keep it real with you. I haven't had any issues with regular controllers outside of DualShock 4s and DualSenses. I've had Joy-Con drift, never got drift on my Pro controller. Like I said beforehand, they're technically prone to drift because they use potentiometer joysticks. But when I look at the whole field, I've never had an Xbox controller get drift. I've only had DualShock 4s. I've been through like 12 DualShock 4s at this point. You know, obviously I stopped buying them at some point, but you know, what I'm saying is I went through a lot of DualShock 4s. The controller I got with my PlayStation 5 had stick drift out of the box. I bought a second controller that also had stick jitter, or it either had jitter or it had stick drift. I don't remember off the top of my head. Within 1 month of use, which I wasn't playing it heavily because of my job. I work in the hospitality industry, so I work long hours. I was very frustrated with this. And this is really the only reason I bought something like the DualSense Edge, because I could easily replace the analog sticks, which is, you know, not something you could say for any of these other controllers. Like, I will say that, but at the same time, you know, Sony doesn't give you like a Hall Effect or a TMR solution to those, you know, analog sticks. It's kind of ridiculous. But again, basically the greatest analog sticks in any first party controller, at least. And to be honest, in general, it is basically better in every way from that original Pro controller, except for maybe one. And that really is the triggers. The triggers are great for anything that doesn't require analog triggers. Now, I haven't played any racing games yet that required the analog trigger, the analog function of, you know, the triggers, but I feel like you're really limiting yourself when you only have those digital triggers. I feel like, you know, I like this click. I feel like there should be a stop on the back of these that allow you to switch between full analog and having that little tactile bump, because I'm not gonna lie to you, when I'm playing a lot of shooters and stuff, I want instantaneous. I do not want to feel the weight of the gun when I'm shooting. shooting, I'm trying to shoot somebody, I need the least amount of latency possible to do that. I've already said it doesn't have Hall effect sticks, but I never got drift with the original ones, so except for the Joy-Cons. So, again, I don't want to say it's worse in this regard, but I do want to say that, if you're really worried about that, if that's a sticking point for you, I just wouldn't buy the controller, because the controller at this point I think is like $100 something. I think when the Switch 2 released, it was like 85, then it went up to 95, and then it got its price raised again to like 100 something. And I think that Nintendo only did that to fight back tariffs and part shortages. Again, no, it's a fairly expensive controller. I think Hall effect sticks are great for the peace of mind, but it isn't a deal breaker for me unless I'm really buying third party, because that's where I get worried. Like, I can send my controller off to Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation, whoever, to go get it fixed. You can't really do that with these third party controllers. I mean, you can, but I doubt it's going to be something that's going to be resolved as quickly as those three, especially with Nintendo. Nintendo has kind of god tier customer service if you've ever used it. I haven't heard of people getting drift with this thing, but again, be wary. Some other things I like about this controller, it still has gyro function. I feel like every single controller should have gyro function. That's the only thing I think that's holding back something like the Xbox controller here, is that it doesn't have gyro. This is the basic Xbox controller, by the way. This isn't like the the Pro controller or whatever that they sell. I want to get one, want to do it for review. If you guys like to see that, let me know down below. But in general, I think Nintendo kind of did their stuff with this one. They have, basically the whole feature set of the previous controller. They've improved on it in almost every single way imaginable. And then on top of that, they add some great features. Like, my favorite feature so far has been the addition of the headphone jack on there, which I feel like the original should have had. I'm glad it's here, especially considering that you're able to change the latency mode. You're able to change between a more stable connection or a lower latency mode. I use it at night a lot, especially since, I work long shifts, and when I get off, I don't want to bother my girlfriend. I just think all around, Nintendo has kind of done a superb job creating this controller. I hope to see improvements on this controller, like maybe they eventually add Hall effect sticks, which I doubt they will. They're probably going to go with potentiometer because it's the cheapest choice on the market. And then on top of that, maybe they create an even more luxury controller, because I do feel like one place where Nintendo in general could go further with the Switch is, more control options. I mean, I like the Joy-Con 2s. They're way more comfortable than the original Joy-Cons. I can use them separately. I can use them on the grip, but I wanted something like this so I could just pick it up and sit at the couch. This has just been fantastic for me. I play Fortnite a lot with this because I can switch between Fortnite on the Switch and PS5, blah blah blah, whichever console I pick up first. It's that good. It does most of what the DualSense Edge does for me, and that's those back paddles. I do wish you were able to change the stick curve and stuff like that, and I feel like that should just be on any controller, not just these Pro controllers, but also on these basic controllers, like maybe the basic Xbox controller, the basic DualSense. But again, this is a replacement for the Joy-Con with the grip. I don't know if Nintendo treats it like a DualSense Edge or they see it that way. I know it's called the Pro controller, but it was like that with the Wii U. And if I remember correctly, it was like the classic controller Pro on the Wii, and that just really just added the grips. So the Pro moniker, I wouldn't look at this as like a DualSense Edge competitor, but it does a lot of what that does. And I think, if I haven't tested this on PC, but if these back buttons work on PC and you're looking for like, if you like the Nintendo style layout, all that stuff, I'd buy one of these. But I don't know. How do y'all guys feel about this in the comment section down below? I know this is a little bit more rambly. I've written all the notes down. It's just been a minute since I've recorded a video, especially like a hardware review like this. I'd like to really know how you guys feel in that comment section. But this is me, man, Jet Set Shattuck. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Share this out with your friends. Remember, Hot Faraga turns to Cold Blizzaga. Check out some of my other videos. Follow your boy on Twitter, X, and join the Discord if you'd like to get updated whenever I upload. But with that all out of the way, peace and have a good one.